First thing is, do something you like, something you enjoy, because then it isn't a job, it's an adventure. If you're that interested in it, you'll be good at it and you'll make money. In life, it's pretty much the same thing. You want to follow your dreams. Go after the things that you like and the things that you want. You want to follow your dreams. Okay, my name is Howard Davis. I was born July 28, 1927 in Brooklyn, New York. And grew up in Brooklyn. Went to public school. Graduated from there, went to Midwood High School. Graduated from there, went to Brooklyn College, which is a 2-year school. Got my AS degree, Associate in Science, and went to CCNY to finish up my bachelor's degree. When I was still in grade school, I read a little article thing that said you can build your own radio. And I followed the instructions and made a homemade radio. That got me interested in making it better because, you know, it was a very simple thing. You know, it was because it was a kid's magazine that was telling you how to build a radio. And well, once I realized that there was much more to it to get the sound better, to get the sensitivity better, and be able to tune it more accurately. Nobody had ever scored 100 on the physics test. I decided that I was going to break that mold and I was going to score 100 on it. To assure that, my buddy Richie Golden and I built a pair of transceivers. I was taking the test and Richie was down in the cafeteria with the textbook. So I'm taking the test and the proctor knew me and he walks up and he says, "Howard, since when do you wear a hearing aid?" And I must have looked about 3 times as guilty as I was. And he says, "Come out in the hall with me." His opening shot is, "Where's Richie Golden?" The head of the physics department told me, he says, "I'll tell you what, you were going to write a treatise on those devices you built, and I want to see a complete explanation of all of the development, all of the formulas for deciding parts values, and the whole process of what you did to build that," which I got 100 on. When I was like 12 years old, I used to run around the neighborhood knocking on doors asking people if they had any radios that needed fixing. In the beginning, it was hard because the 12-year-old kid, "No, we're not going to let you play with our expensive radio." Because radios in those days was a piece of furniture and they weren't cheap. So sometimes they'd give me an old one, a really old, really old junky one to play with. And when I found out that I really could fix them, the word got around that, yeah, he knows what he's doing. I was making almost as much as my father, just part-time after school like that. You know, that's if you got a skill set and you exploit it. So I was doing a lot of experimental stuff when I was in high school. That's why I elected the engineering course in college. After I graduated CCNY, I got a job in Rochester, New York, working for Stromberg Carlson. That worked out pretty well and got married, had 2 children. Just got disgusted with the problem of having to continually shovel snow in Rochester. I heard about an opportunity to work on the space program and went to California. Unfortunately, my wife didn't want to come with me. Eventually obtained a divorce because she didn't want to live with me, and goodbye. So I went to work for Ryan as a section head. I kind of jumped in and grabbed the reins because it was chaos at that point. The whole project was to develop the landing guidance for manned lunar landing when the astronauts landed on the moon. I had a group of 10 engineers that I was supervising. I guess I did it well enough to impress the senior management at Ryan because they made it official.
I believe that from the early space flights we demonstrated a potential to carry out this type of a mission, and again it was a question of time until this would be accomplished.
You know, there are several interesting problems that go with this. As you're coming down, you can't, it's not, there's no air, so you can't, you can't glide or anything like that. So you're expending fuel to slow you down. If you ran out of fuel before you were down low enough, you're going to crash.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
You're dealing not only with the technical problems, but you're also dealing with the bureaucracy. This is how you get $700 hammers. Westinghouse had provided us some sample transistors for the switchers and the power supply. They were perfect for the job. When they placed the purchase order, it had a little nasty in there called NPC 200-3, which requires traceability of materials all the way back to the mine. When Westinghouse got the purchase order, they rejected it because of all of this paperwork that they were going to get involved in. They couldn't make money on it no matter what they charged. I write a letter to Grumman, copy to RCA, copy to NASA, which said that now be a 6-month hiatus in the program while we find another part to use and repackage to suit the new configuration. And sat back and waited for the explosion. 4 days later, I get a phone call from a gentleman who introduced himself as Senior Vice President of Westinghouse Corporation, not Westinghouse Semiconductor, Westinghouse Corp. And he wants to know, sir, if I can come down to San Diego, sir, and have lunch with you, sir. Yeah, we can come down and have lunch. And he told me that, yeah, they had reconsidered and they would make the parts for us. Why did you change your mind? He says, well, it was a corporate decision, blah, 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 blah. I said, what happened? He said, all right, I'll tell you. He said, I got a call from the Chief Procurement Officer at Department of Defense. And he told me that he had his qualified producers list on his desk and his red pen in his hand with the tip of the pen on the W in Westinghouse. Shall I move my arm, sir? And you realize that if he put a red line through Westinghouse, that was not just the transistors, that was everything. That Westinghouse was persona non grata with Department of Defense. Well, they charged $500 a piece for those transistors. The commercial product was $40, just to give you an idea of when I said that this paperwork was ridiculously expensive. If you were interested in the quality, pay an extra $100 for screening, burn-in, run them for 100 hours at maximum load. If it's got something wrong with it, it'll fail in the first 100 hours. I found something on my desk when I came in. It's a picture of a turtle crawling down the road with his neck stuck way out, and the caption said, "Behold the tortoise, he maketh no progress unless he sticketh out his neck." You know, when I wrote that letter to NASA, that could have had some serious repercussions. When we shipped Unit 27, which was the last unit,
the LEM was in good shape and exhibited no damage from the landing or the descent.
There was 350 engineers and I don't know how many support staff. There was, all kinds of technicians and administration staff, all the secretaries and bean counters and so forth. Senior management from Ryan came down. They said, "Magnificent job, fellas. Couldn't have done it without you. Goodbye."
No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space.
Finally met another lady who was interesting and eventually got married and had 4 more kids. Joel, Michelle, Aaron, and Alan. I found a job doing this thing called Smart Bomb. The idea was to pick up a man's body heat and guide the bomb down on top of him. And I realized, what is it you're doing, Howard? You're killing people. To backtrack a minute, when we were working on Apollo, we were picking a whole race up by the bootstraps and we're going to the moon. And that felt good. But killing people didn't feel so good. And I decided that after a while that it was just chewing at me and I didn't want to do it. So I quit. And they told me You won't stop this, we'll just get somebody else to finish it if you quit. But if you quit, we'll pull your security clearance, we'll pull your secret clearance, and you'll never get another government job involving the government. And I said, so what? There's too many good things to do. True enough, they pulled my security clearance, and so I had to find a job that was strictly commercial. Somebody introduced me to a guy named Jerry Silvers, who had the bright idea that he wanted to make emergency lights. Now, emergency lights existed at that time. It was like a great big lunchbox with a battery and a headlight on top. He had the idea that you could use fluorescence. So if you can get along with a 8-watt fluorescent instead of a 50-watt bulb, you're going to have a proportionately smaller battery for a given time on battery. He was right that this would be a major march forward, but he didn't know how to run a fluorescent from a battery. I didn't either when I started, but you know, you get into something and you figure out how to do it. There were competitive units that would run fluorescent lights, but they had a common problem. If the lamp failed, the inverter would blow up, because the energy that was supposed to go into the light would heat the inverter and blow it up. And I said, well, wait a minute, if that happens, why not detect the increased heat and shut the system down? So I figured out a way to do that, which as soon as I showed it to Jerry, next day he had the patent lawyers down. He wanted those patents. It was fascinating to watch him operate. When I went to work for Siltron, I was number 4 employee. When I left Siltron, there was 175 aboard. We had 18 patents in the field. The building code was written in a strange way. It said that you had to have a 50-watt luminaire for the emergency lighting system in a building. You had to have a 50-watt luminaire every 100 feet down a corridor. That was based on using incandescent lighting. Our thing, we had an 8-watt light that produced the same amount of light. And so I volunteered to help rewrite the code for the state. Instead of talking about how many watts, we talked about foot candles on vertical surfaces and foot candles on horizontal surfaces, which is your ability to see. So now you have a smaller, more efficient light. You can do the job. And it gave to get that amount of light with incandescence, they had to have a big, expensive system, because you need a big battery to power it. So this is how we got about 2.5 years ahead of the competition. I had 4 techs working in the lab. I could keep them busy. You know, I'd come up with an idea, say, here, build me this. Here's a little sketch of what I want. And they'd make it for me and run the tests and all of that. And it was a happy time, really. I was doing my thing and nobody bothered me. Jerry had one failing. He smoked like a chimney. He would literally light one off the last. It killed him. It killed him. He essentially had an attack in his office at age 41. He was DOA at the hospital. That was sad, because when the new owners took over the company, they told me that I was now production manager and go fire the 4 techs you got in your lab. If that's what you want me to do, let me ask you a question. What do you expect to be selling next year, and more importantly, the year after that? And he says, right now we got to get our money back that we bought the company for. So we're going to twist the crank on production. Well, make a couple of phone calls, got another job. We're one of the competitors. If somebody says to me, you can't do that, the next word out of my mouth is why. My thinking is, oh, wait a minute. For what reason can it not be done? If there are 3 rules to the physical universe, you find that you can decide whether or not to do a project. Rule 1 is you can't win. This is known as conservation of energy. Rule 2, you can't even break even. This is known as the second law of thermodynamics. Rule 3, you can't even get out of the game. This is what's known as entropy. And if what you're trying to do does not violate one of those, then it's possible. I'd say it isn't difficult, but it's possible. And that is a huge difference in deciding whether or not to pursue a project. That's why I find that most of the people in a given industry, they have a fixed viewpoint. And they say, well, no, this is what we do, and that's it. And they don't think outside the box. First thing is, do something you like, something you enjoy, because then it isn't a job, it's an adventure. If it's a job, it's just a chore and you don't like it and you just do it because it needs to be done. And then you're not good at it because you don't have the drive for it. You don't have the passion for it, and that's the key. In life, it's pretty much the same thing. You want to follow your dreams and go after the things that you like and the things that you want.